The Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce serves the interest of its members through numerous programs, advocates for a free and open market economy in Afghanistan, and endeavors to strengthen U.S.-Afghanistan economic relations. AACC's annual U.S.-Afghanistan Business Matchmaking Conference is the world's leading event for promotion of the private sector, business matchmaking, and investment in Afghanistan. AACC works to ensure that Afghanistan's economy and employment of the Afghan people remains a top priority for the U.S. and Afghan policymakers and serves as a link between business and government to encourage progressive economic policies that will result in increased business, job creation, and investment between the U.S. and Afghanistan. We believe that peace and stability can only be achieved in Afghanistan through the success and growth of the private sector. It is the goal of AACC to promote the exchange of information and provide resources to its members through investment conferences, seminars, networking events, publications, and other avenues to stimulate U.S.-Afghanistan business and investment. The Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce, facilitating U.S.-Afghan business, investment, and trade ties.
At this point, I would like to start with our first panel. We are a bit behind in time, so I would like to try to make it as fast as we can. But this is our first panel, which is expert panel discussion on export processing zones, regional trade, and export promotion opportunities. I would like to have our panelists come on the stage. I'd like to ask the Honorable Muhammad Shah Habibi, Director General for Afghanistan Civil Aviation Authority, to please come on the stage. Our second panelist, if I could have Mr. Stephen Irwin, Aviation and Export Processing Zone Expert. Hi, thank you. If we could have Mr. Cesar Valero, Senior Partner, ALG Endrock Corporation. Please come on the stage. I would like to have Mr. Safir Sahar, Director for Chemonics International. Please come on the stage. And Mr. Keith Alanis, if I'm saying it the last name correctly, I hope. Please come on the stage. We have the bios on the pamphlets or packages, so for the sake of time, I'm not going to give detailed bios for everyone. Is there enough chairs we have? Yes. But the bios are available. Quickly, I will talk about the importance of this panel because Afghanistan's economy to improve, exports will play a key role to create more jobs and to help improve the economy of Afghanistan. Right now we have a high ratio of imports to Afghanistan, but improving exports of Afghanistan that has suffered because of the many years of war and infrastructure issues will make a big difference in helping create more jobs and help different industries from agriculture to gemstones to carpet and many other industries where Afghanistan used to have great exports. Some of our products are world famous, but unfortunately because of these many years of war and infrastructure issues and even branding problems, some of these products of Afghanistan has been forgotten. And the focus is in the next few years, and already we have seen a great success in exports in Afghanistan, but in the next few years, with all these changes that these expert panels will speak on those, the exports of Afghanistan will increase and it will make a big difference in the economy of Afghanistan and creating jobs. It's important to identify these key products first and make sure their key producers or industry champions are identified and they're promoted locally and regionally, so we create a demand for these products, at least in the regional market, And as a landlocked country for Afghanistan, in addition to road transportation, so Afghanistan can become almost like a hub for exporting key products to the region, which has one of the largest population with India. And all these countries of Afghanistan is right there. So the market is right there. It just Afghanistan needs to have the right products. It has to be packaged properly, processed properly, branded properly, and exported to the regional countries. And as a landlocked country, aviation and air becomes so important to be able to transport these products in a fast manner, especially if it's perishable food and products, agricultural products. So aviation, as you will hear, will play a key role to create these processing zones and have air corridors to the regional countries around Afghanistan and beyond. And without further to say, at this point, I'd like to have our first panelist, the Honorable Mahmoud Shah Habibi, Director General for Afghanistan Civil Aviation Authority, to talk about the vision for the future civil aviation and exports economy, including air exports, APZ, airport development, and etc. Mr. Habibi.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, Professor Faruqi, Mr. Greg Huger, the senior Afghan delegation from the Afghanistan government, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. First of all, I would like to thank the U.S. Department of Commerce and Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce for providing this opportunity to talk about the aviation sector of Afghanistan and the opportunities for the investment which is lying in this sector. I would like to start thanking Mr. Greg Huger and his USAID Afghanistan team for providing technical expertise and working side by side with our experts to work on some of the very important projects. We are going to start today by giving a background of please next slide please. A background of the Afghanistan Civil Aviation Authority, the opportunities and challenges that we have. And then my other colleagues, Mr. Stephen Irwin will talk about the airport export processing zones, and our consultants from Tetra Tech/ALG Group will talk about some of the projects that are ready for the investments in the aviation sector. As Mr. Lutfi said, air transport is important for Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a landlocked country. We have to connect to the world. And this is one of the primary mode of connection for us to be connected to the world and transport the passenger and cargo. Afghanistan aviation is booming in last 3 to 4 years. If we see in last 15 years, the aviation sector was mainly controlled by NATO and American forces. We have started the transition, and it is very successful. 2.5 years ago, we transitioned the whole airspace from the NATO and US Air Force to Afghan government. And today it's run by the Afghan government with the help of our international experts and Afghan experts, whose capacity is building on every daily basis, and they are replacing the international expert. The export by air transport is increasing, and last year, by value, it was almost for the half of Afghanistan exports. And it plays a very critical role in the economic development and job creation in Afghanistan. Our leaders, President Ghani calls, for example, Hamid Karzai Airport as the heart of Afghanistan, and aviation is considered as a pillar of national security also. On annual basis, Afghanistan civil aviation sector has some huge contracts right now with some of the US companies, some of whose representatives are present here today, for up to $50 million in operation and maintenance projects. And we would also like to argue that these are some of the most transparent projects, and we have a very good partnership with those companies. The representative, Mr. Glenn, is available here, the Vice President for RMS company, and some others that you can talk with them in sessions. Every year, the revenue are increasing. Our first goal is to make this sector as one of the self-sustainable sector by the revenues that it is generating. We are not going to go to the donors anymore for getting funds. Instead, we will go to them to come and have a partnership. Let's have a partnership and explore the opportunities that we have in Afghanistan and have investors invest in Afghanistan in this sector. Our overflights are increasing. 2.5 years back, when we got the transition of Afghanistan airspace, everyone thought the Afghanistan airspace is going to get closed, but it went the opposite side. Not only it got closed, but the services got better, and our flights over Afghanistan airspace are increasing. We are having up to 90,000 flights just overflying Afghanistan airspace, and it's bringing a huge revenue for the government and this sector. The passenger rates and the air cargo rate is increasing every year, as you can see in the slides. We are in the process of transition of the airports. Almost 21 domestic airport has been transitioned and run now directly by Afghans, and we are in the process of transitioning the 4 international airports. 95% of staff at Hamid Karzai International Airports consist of Afghans, and that is having a huge impact in bringing the cost down and revenue in increasing the revenues. Next slide, please. Afghanistan and Central Asia have a solid potential for air traffic growth. If we see extending to the aviation industry, there is economic development in emerging countries, expansion of the middle class, growth of tourism and religious pilgrims demand. As it's anticipated that the GDP growth from 2016 to 2025, in Afghanistan it will be 4.5%, in Central Asia 4.4%, and the same is the population growth where it will be in Afghanistan. In between 2007 2016 it was 2.9%, and in Central Asia it was 1.9%. We are also having some interesting to the aviation industry, such as liberalization of air transport, development of low-cost business models, strengthening of hub and spoke strategies. Central Asia is currently a consolidation stage of liberalization on aviation sector, which is providing cost reduction and economic benefits. As deregulation occurs and carrier expands, the number of route and destination is going to increase. We are having some of very reputable airlines coming right now to Afghanistan, and there are many more to come. Right now, Emirates, Fly Dubai, Turkish, they are flying to Afghanistan, and there will be soon some other airlines such as Qatar, Atlas Global, Air Arabia, who has just submitted applications to us, will start their flights to Afghanistan, and it will have a huge impact on the expanding this sector. Next slide, please. Currently, the routes which are operated from Kabul and Hamid Karzai International Airport and other international airports, the slide is a bit older. There are many more routes, especially in Central Asia, which we are getting directly connected to. Before we were flying there via Dubai, but we have direct flights now to Tajikistan, to Uzbekistan. We are soon going to have flights to Turkmenistan. We are having flights to Almaty, and we consider Afghanistan in future as one of the best hubs for those countries to come via Afghanistan and transit to other countries. Hamid Karzai International Airport, next slide please, is the gateway to Afghanistan. The same is the other 4 international airports, and the government is putting lots of focus right now by changing them to commercial entities. In the last 15 years, they were used more as military bases, but now we want to run it as a civilian airports, and by considering the commercial perspectives in all of these 4 international airports and in aviation overall. These are the details of each and every airports given in the slides. Next slide, please. I don't want to go too much into the details, but we are looking for some potential projects that we want to start this year. Once again, we would like to thank the USAID for starting the feasibility studies of some of the most important projects at Hamid Karzai International Airport, which will start this year. For example, an airport export processing zone, a 5-star airport hotel, a new international passenger terminal, cargo terminal, fuel farms, MROs, and then we're going to expand it to the other international airports also. The feasibility studies of all of these projects are going on right now and are going to be done. Some of them will be done till end of July and the others till October, and we will be going for the procurement process. The PPP laws even allows us to go for some direct source contracts. So if we are going to have some good companies or some brands, we might go on a sole source contract with them for these projects. Next slide, please. Our first focus is on the EPZ, which is the export processing zones, the cargo infrastructure, and the airport hotel. The EPZ and the enhanced cargo handling infrastructure at HKIA will add value to Afghan products, improve the link between Afghanistan with the regional and international markets, process activities for products that are initially produced in Afghanistan but which presently undergo unfinished. Examples, for example, gem cutting and polishing, jewelry manufacturing, carpet finishing, saffron processing, food and juice processing, etc. It will divert to Afghanistan significant value and profit that would otherwise be realized outside of Afghanistan. For example, most of the products right now are going to Pakistan, and they're putting Pakistan label on it and then exporting to other parts of the world. And we will be transporting it directly from Afghanistan to many parts of the other world. And the same is serve the model to develop the other 3 EPZs in Afghanistan, other 3 international airports. And once again, the vision of the president is the government will not be involved in everything. These all things should be done by the private sector, and there is a huge potential for this thing to be done through the private sector. And then our next focus is the international passenger terminal, fuel farm, and MROs at Hamid Karzai Airport initially, and then we will be going to other airports also. There are some key issues that we will be considering in all of these 6 projects, such as the legal framework, infrastructure, personnel, safety, and security, to make them more viable and for the investors to start investing in these projects. Once again, I'm not going to go into too much details. I will give the floor to my other colleagues, Mr. Stephen Erwin, to talk about the airport export processing zones, and then our consultant from Tetra Tech/ALG to talk the approach that they're going to be doing the feasibility studies, and then we will be presenting these projects to the for bidding. Once again, there are some huge opportunities in aviation sector in Afghanistan, and we would like to invite you all to participate in this thing. Once again, there is a clear message from our High Economic Council also. If there are some viable investors, we might go with them on a direct source contract with them, and there will be every possibility made for them to come and invest in these airports. Finally, airports are one of the most secure places, and they are easy for everything. We are not talking about some very far projects in some provinces or something. We are just going to be at the center of these airports and implementing these projects. So we would like to discuss it more after the sessions if anyone is interested, and we will be available to answer any question. Thank you.
If I could have Mr. Stephen Erwin, please, to talk about the aviation and export processing zones. The topic would be how USG and GYRO could best assist in finalizing Afghanistan's EPZ airport concessions and related joint ventures.
Good morning. I'm going to speak a little bit about some legal aspects of these aviation projects generally, and then get into a bit more detail on EPZs specifically. The Afghan Civil Aviation Law grants the independent Afghanistan Civil Aviation Authority the authority to develop Afghan airports. So what happens on an airport falls under Mr. Habibi's control. As part of the ACAA's efforts to become financially self-sustaining and support the country's economic development objectives, the ACAA has embarked on a commercial development program of aviation assets. The objective of this program is to provide necessary aviation-related facilities and services, generate revenue, and support national economic growth. A classic win-win-win. An export processing zone is one element of this strategy. The aim is to address the dramatic trade imbalance and grow the economy by developing and facilitating new foreign exports in both new and established sectors. Next slide, please. How will it work? It's really a relatively simple concept. We'll invite traders from various sectors to establish themselves into a defined area on the airport property. That'll be the EPZ. It could be as simple as a fence that defines an area that will be created within the boundaries of Hamid Karzai International Airport. Features of the EPZ will include attractive ground lease rates, tax and customs duty incentives, robust security, and business support in the form of a kind of a one-stop shop for acquiring business licenses, marketing, and day-to-day management of the EPZ itself. Products requiring air transport will have convenient access to customs and cargo operators. They'll be right there. Next slide, please. How will we make these projects happen? The government support in the form of providing feasibility and economic impact studies, legal and regulatory support, business development, infrastructure improvements, and software and programs to improve process discipline and meet international standards. Private sector support in the form of investment in these new aviation opportunities, developing innovative proposals that put Afghans to work and generate profits. Next slide, please. There's a very clear correlation between a country's economic growth and aviation growth. This is clear everywhere you look in the world. And what we're attempting to do in Afghanistan is a proven model. This is not some experimental idea. This is what works everywhere you go. If you've ever walked through a modern international airport terminal, everybody's trying to get your money. But this is, we're trying to move away from a user fee-based model where we tack fees onto your ticket prices and go to a market-based approach where people are willingly reaching into their pocket and spending money for products and services. That's makes everybody happy. Again, there's a strong correlation between GDP and aviation growth, and throughout the historical data of air traffic, it has been observed that air traffic is resilient to external crises. So this is a good business to invest in. In particular in Afghanistan, the airports, the 4 commercial airports, amongst the safest places in the country to conduct business. Next slide, please. What is an EPZ? Well, as I mentioned, it's as simple as a fenced-in area in which you invite traders to come in and establish their businesses and enjoy incentives. That's the attraction. The payoff is profits for them, taxes for the government, and jobs for the people. Amongst some of the incentives are offering liberalized regulations and customs duty and sometimes tax incentives. Attract foreign investors is the purpose. Attract collaborators and buyers who can facilitate the entry of national goods into the international market. What type of facilities are we talking about inside these EPZs? But it depends on the model of EPZ, but I know that when I was there, we spoke to the gemstone and carpet industry people, and they were very interested. The idea being that they would bring their product into an EPZ, establish themselves, finish those products, and to a state that they could actually be shipped out of the country directly from Kabul airport. And I can tell you that those two industries in particular were very supportive of what we had in mind. Next slide, please. The ACA will introduce a dedicated airport EPZ under the current aviation law that will govern investment terms, support EPZ business entity registration, provide investment incentives and protections, provide some clarity on labor use, including foreign expatriate labor. We anticipate some of these companies will bring in expats to either train or provide management expertise in the early years. Clarify the relationship between EPZ companies and various government entities, simplify exporting processes, guarantee EPZ management under the ACAA, and define terms for future EPZ developments. Airport EPZs are an opportunity, and airports are the right place to start to dramatically address the trade imbalance that's currently in the country. It's the right place, the right idea, and it's the right time to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to have Mr. Cesar Valero, Senior Partner at ALG Indra Corporation, Barcelona, Spain, to come and say a few words.
Thank you very much and good morning. I just wanted to talk about three things. One is the project that on behalf of USAID we just began last Sunday, and it's regarding, as Mr. Habibi announced, is regarding the feasibility studies of 5 projects, infrastructure projects in the airport. Second is to review some of our experience as consultancy firm in these areas. So these examples of very recent references may help us to identify the key issues that may help us to drive these very relevant projects in Afghanistan. And the third and the last thing is to summarize the lessons learned during our experience as consulting in aviation sector. First, as we see, the project that we just began to analyze is regarding the EPCs, the EPC zones, the air cargo, the hotel and conventional center, the maintenance program, the maintenance operation, the fuel system, and the passenger terminal, and also to review about the software itself. Preliminary, there has been identified some the location for these facilities, but we are working on these facilities and locations. But at least we have this first shot for the facilities. Oh, okay, thank you. Which is the scope of work for this facility, for this analysis? We are covering from the concept design, also covering the economic studies and the environmental studies, and going ahead with a roadmap. So at the end of the project, we are going to have a full view of the demand of the projects, of each of the projects, the financial plan, the legal framework that is needed to develop this, the potential investors that they may be interested in the project, and the action plan to develop these projects. We have the schedule for this feasibility studies that we just began on Sunday. As Mr. Habibi also announced, these studies for the market assessment are going to be finished by mid-October, but the full study is going to finish by January. So it's a very quick project covering a lot of things. Let me introduce my firm as we are going ahead with the references and the examples. We are ALG is a consultant firm, an international consultant firm. We have offices in Dubai. This project actually is going to be developed with a Dubai office. This is going also to help us to have a very nice contact on knowledge of Afghanistan. We have about 80 consultants focused only on transportation and infrastructure and focus on the three main modes of transportation: aviation, maritime, and land transportation. This view allows us to have a very nice understanding of the whole transportation chain. So a lot of things that happens in the airport also has a lot of things to railway, as we listened before, but also with the maritime transport. So we know all the stakeholders in the transport chain. Only a few figures, but Middle East represents today 20% of our revenue, and Asia is representing roughly 7% of our revenue. But besides that, we have a worldwide experience, so we can bring to Afghanistan the best practices of different airports to this project. In aviation sectors, just going briefly, we work with all main stakeholders: airlines, airports, navigation, and other aviation industry. This other aviation is very relevant here because we're working with retail operators within the airport or food and beverage, but also real estate operators, handling, fuel operators, and also real estate. So we have a very comprehensive view of what's happening in the airport that's going to allow us to know the requirements for all the stakeholders, what they need and what they are expecting of these projects. Some examples of for clients of type of projects. As you see, we have commercial development, infrastructure, air cargo, passenger market, etc. And as I said, we have a footprint worldwide, so we have projects in aviation all over the world, and having experience in large airports, regional airports, and also greenfield airports. So we can, hopefully, and I'm sure that we are going to wrap up all this experience to bring a successful story in Afghanistan. Here I wanted to come with some references, and I want to highlight some of the key issues of these airports. So these projects some of them are still ongoing or are projects that we developed just last year. For instance, the new airport at Mexico City, which is going to be probably the most relevant greenfield airport in the world for the next years, is going to be open in the year 2021 or 22. And for this airport, we have designed the air cargo terminal, the whole terminal, and now we are helping to structure the PPP for the government. This project is going to be to double the size of the surface for the air cargo, and they are going to handle about 1 million tons in the air cargo. Here, it has been a key issue to clearly identify the demand that is going to bring the airport. And it's not only about air cargo itself, but also we're going to have here a lot of logistics that is not directly related to the air traffic. But because it's very close to the city, we are generating a lot of space for warehouses and logistic activity. Another key issue here is to be sure that the road access are going to work smoothly. Otherwise, I mean, in Mexico City, if you are not thinking on the road access, it's going to be a failure for the logistics. The other example is about Tocumen Airport in Panama City. Here in Panama, they have a very long and successful tradition about free zones. But these free zones, they have been always related to the channel, to the Panama Channel. So here we have a very nice starting point because we have a very nice people, qualified people, training people, and the most important thing, a very solid and stable regulation regarding the EPC. So with this starting point, the government asked, what else can we do with the airports? And we studied the demand, how it's developing the airports, the air traffic, and we find out that here we have a very, very unique position with Panama. Panama Airport with Copa Airlines, it has the biggest connections in the region. So they have most connections to any other destination than any other airport in Latam. So it's a very, very huge hub for the whole region. So here, the demand and the EPC is going to be focused mainly on all these high-value products that is going to be needed to move very fast. For instance, everything from pharmaceutical products, opticians, spare products, for instance, for maintenance, aircraft maintenance. So here we're trying to find the unique position of each airport. The other example, in Quito Airport, we're developing the airport city. Here, the most relevant thing that we find is the hotel. As we will see here in Afghanistan, the hotel in Quito Airport is going to be key. Airport in Quito is about 40 kilometers away from city, and we find out that there is only one hotel in the nearby of the hotel with a occupancy rate higher than any other hotel in the city. So here it's going to be a success, the hotel and any other office buildings. On the other hand, commercial mall, shopping malls, we think that they are going to be hard to work on this area. The maintenance in Rio de Janeiro, we work with Galeão Airport. They ask us to find out the best commercial strategy for a maintenance facility that they already have, but the license was going to expire. So we work with them to find the key issues for the commercial strategy. Going very, very fast, as I've been asked. We also have been working with Aeromexico for the fuel system in the new airport, just to find a new business development in this area, working with Milenio for the PPP project in El Salvador. But also we have been working in the region for other airports in Jeddah, Dubai, Riyadh, and other regional airports in Saudi Arabia, and also many others. We have been working in the region for free zones, not related straight to the airport, but free zones at the end. And also finishing with the lesson learned very quickly. But first, we have to begin with the infrastructure, trying to avoid the white elephants. We don't want to build up a big thing that is away from the demand. And once we have the demand, we have to build up the infrastructure in a scalable way, but always having in mind to be this infrastructure to be very functional. We don't want to have a nice but not functional infrastructure, otherwise the operators are not coming. Players, other colleagues here, they say that we need international players to bring not only the investment, but also the know-how, the legal framework. No operator are coming if we don't have a very solid and stable legal framework. Safety and security. One of the things is we have to withdraw from the blacklist the airlines, and one of the things that we need for this is training of personnel to reach the international standards for aviation. So we have to work with these 6 different perspectives, but very related, to succeed these projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. At this point of the program, we'd like to have MOU signing ceremony between the Afghanistan Civil Aviation Authority and the United States government, establishing a new program to support rapid development of export processing zones throughout Afghanistan. I would like to invite Mr. Greg Huger, the USAID Assistant to the Administrator for Afghanistan and Pakistan, to come on the stage, please.
Just a few words, because I'll be speaking later. When I last met with President Ghani, he said that he was moving from the generation of the 70s to the generation of the 90s. Director General Shah Habibi is a perfect example of that. We're delighted to have this partnership.
Like to come for a photo op for this MOU opportunity? Don, Jeff, General Arney, or anyone else? We'll take a couple pictures and sign the MOU.
Dr. Saib, kada sumrasi.
Congratulations. So just for the audience, so you know, they signed a memorandum of understanding today that will clarify U.S. government support for the development of export processing zones throughout Afghanistan at its main airports, and a process by which feasibility studies will be completed quickly and that private sector investment can come into the airports to help develop the airports themselves in return for support from the Afghan government. Thank you.
As Jeff mentioned, agriculture would be Afghanistan as an agricultural country. Of course, one of the main export products of Afghanistan would be agriculture, and that's why we have the final two panelists that are here will be talking about some of the agricultural export opportunities of Afghanistan. We have our panelist number 3, Mr. Safir Sahar, Director for Chemonex International. He'll be talking about export opportunities in agriculture. Please, I'm just.
Thank you, Lutfi Saib. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I promise I would be quick because we have a limited time for this kind of presentation, but if I couldn't provide more details, I would be happy to meet you in the afternoon and provide you as much detail as you want. As you know, Chemonex is implementing USAID project in Afghanistan since a long time and implemented money project in different sectors. And recently we completed the implementation of a TAR, Trade and Revenue Project, where we assist the Afghan government with the WTO accessions, custom reform, and also with the export promotions. And I would like to share some successful story of the one component which we focus on the export promotion here. And would be happy to, as I said, if you need more detail, we can discuss it in the afternoon in one-to-one meeting. So the previous speaker also discussed about the importance of the promotion for the export. So under the ATAR project, we recently organized with together with USAID Afghanistan and USAID India, the Passage to Prosperity events in India. We come up with 400 and 240 million potential and confirmed deals in India. We discovered that India is a huge market for Afghanistan's export, and although there is a transit issue passing Pakistan, sending goods to India, but the air corridor is another initiative that could be a sustainable approach for Afghanistan export to send Afghan products to India. And we also discovered that the Afghan goods has a very good image in India. So most of the Indians, they are willing to pay some extra pennies or extra rupees to buy Afghan products. When we discussed it, I was told by one of the Indians that, you know, they are willing to pay some extra rupees to buy Afghan goods because they are inspiring by from the history. There is a movie that made Kabuliwala. I'm sure most of you watched that movie. That they are inspired by the Afghans that they exported the dry fruits to India and by camels, and you know and also the quality of the product. So there is no need for more publicity in India, but I think how to get it there, that would be a huge market. It's a 1.3 billion population. Air corridor, is it sustainable? Yes, it's sustainable for the high value products, but I think more destination needs to be added. The Delhi there is more flights frequently to Delhi, but probably Mumbai and other city could be added to the air cargo, to export through the air cargo. Transit issue with Pakistan. APTA was actually giving access for Afghanistan to send the goods to India, but again, due to political relations, that is not a successful approach, and also the transit through Wagah was somehow impacted by the political relation, but otherwise that could be more economically viable routes. From Torkham to Wagah is almost like 520 kilometers. The Afghan truck can get Indian markets on the same day. But again, I think the Afghan governments and donors decided to find an alternative way, which, as I said, the air corridor would be another good alternative to export to India. Next slide, please. So how to simplify more exports? One is how to find the market, and second is how to simplify the export process. Under the ATAR project, we also recently was able to open the one-stop shop at the Hamid Karzai International Airport, where all the line ministries representatives are in the same room, and they could easily process the export process rather than for the exporter to seeking the signature of these individuals in their departments and just speed up the whole process. But the export percentage through the Kabul International Airport is limited. So such one-stop shop is needed for the ICDs like Jalalabad, Kandahar, Mazar, Herat, and also needs to be added to the other international airport within Afghanistan to facilitate further exports by year. Next slide, please. So how to find the buyers? This is another question. And we discovered during this, even the B2B, B2C trade events, trade show is a good tool to connect the Afghan exporters with international buyers. International exhibition is another good tool for Afghanistan exporters to be connected with the international buyers. I remember that at the beginning, we were sponsoring the Afghanistan exporters to these international exhibitors, but later on they realized that there is a benefits, and there is a way for them to reach out their buyers. So now it's a sustainable process. Now we just facilitated, and they pay for their goods, they pay for their hotels, and they are actively participating in these international exhibitions such as Gulf Food, Domotex, and they make a huge deal in this exhibition. Next step. Well, as I said, I promised I would be quick. The previous speaker also discussed the national export strategy. It's a great document. And now it's approved by the High Economic Council. And what is the next step? How we can make this strategy implementable? What are the action plans? So for this, to get beyond the regions, beyond the neighboring country for Afghanistan export, to increase the export and also get higher profit. So some standards needs to be met and by the Afghanistan exporters, such as meeting the SPS requirements, certificates, fumigations, cold storage, packing house, grading, sorting, harvest, and providing some information to the farmers as well. So these are our great story and success within this project, and we are very keen to see future opportunity to use our experience and contribute in Afghanistan exports. Thank you so much.
At this point, I would like to have our final panelist, Mr. Keith Alanis, co-founder for Rumi Spice. He'll be talking about best practices of a successful agricultural exporter from Afghanistan.
Thank you. I wanted to start by just thanking the Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce for inviting us to speak. We've been here, I think the last time I spoke was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and this idea of getting saffron out of Afghanistan and selling it in U.S. markets was just a crazy dream. I want to back up and just talk a little bit about my experience in Afghanistan. I served in the military for 10 years, most of that time deployed to areas. I spent time in Iraq, and in my last 4 years I worked specifically on Afghanistan issues. And our story begins, next slide please. Our story begins with a farmer named Haji Yosef. So during my last tour in Afghanistan, I met this farmer, Haji Yosef, and he brought to me this incredible red spice. I didn't know anything about saffron at the time. And Haji Yosef explains to me, I would grow more saffron, but I can only sell it in my local market, in my village market. And this is a problem that is probably not unfamiliar to many of you sitting here. Afghanistan has some incredible produce, has some incredible capabilities. There's been billions of dollars spent from this building to help build the Afghanistan capacity to produce. but very little effort paid into connecting Afghanistan producers with markets. So this farmer who had this incredible saffron would not grow more because you would just lower the price in your local market. So our idea was, I got with my partners and said, hey, what if we can connect these farmers with US markets? If we can do that, we're going to give them a reason to produce more. We're going to catalyze economic development in rural Afghanistan, the places where we're fighting for hearts and minds, and too often, the economic inputs don't reach rural Afghanistan. If we can do that, we can change the dynamic of what's happening in Afghanistan among the farmers. We can provide jobs, we can provide employment opportunities. So we started this project in 2015, literally hand-carrying back saffron in an air corridor, which was just a flight at that time. We hand-carried back saffron and started knocking on chefs' doors, in New York, in Boston, in DC, and trying to sell this saffron. Come to find out, Afghanistan saffron is far and away the best saffron on the market. It blows away the competition in terms of its quality and its color and its fragrance, and the chefs recognize that. So we've been able to build a good market with high-end chefs. So we sell to Michelin star chefs across the US, and we've leveraged that branding to sell directly to consumers as well and in retail stores. But all the while, what's important to us is that we brand this saffron as Afghanistan saffron. We want people to associate Afghanistan not with things like war and terrorism, but we want them to associate Afghanistan with the world's best saffron, with our namesake Rumi, the poet from Jalalabad. So just a little bit about where we've, that's where we've been. Where we are now, we've brought in over $1 million worth of saffron. So that's $1 million of foreign direct investment in agriculture going directly to the hands of the farmers, to our laborers. We've established 3 processing centers in Afghanistan. In those 3 processing centers, we hire almost 2,000 women during the harvest season. So this is transformative for the women who are able to receive direct wages to support their families. A lot of times these women are heads of households, they're widows. And we work with over 300 farmers now all across several districts of Herat. So this is a crazy idea a couple of years ago. Now it's actually changing the way that we eat here in the US. Next slide, please. Next one. Next slide. So we believe that food should connect people. We believe that it's important for a US consumer to understand where their food comes from. And this is a growing movement among the US consumers that they do care about what they're purchasing and where their purchasing dollars are going to. As we develop the Afghanistan saffron industry, one thing that is most important is maintaining consistent quality. And this was probably the biggest innovations we did in Afghanistan, was developing a quality control and quality assurance system to make sure that we consistently get high quality saffron from Afghanistan and that the Afghan brand is associated only with the best quality ingredients. I'm going to wrap it up because I know we don't have much time, so next slide, please. Final slide. So I'll just leave you with a quote from Rumi: "Where there is ruin, there is hope for treasure." I want to encourage everybody here, investors, to view Afghanistan not as a challenge, but as an incredible opportunity. If you want to talk about getting into Afghanistan saffron or other agricultural products from Afghanistan and would like to join our mission to cultivate peace in Afghanistan, I'm happy to talk to you after this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was interesting to see from one product how a brand is made and this product is distributed here in the US. This panel, we ran a little bit behind on time, so I'd like to have a very brief, if there's any quick Q&As.
1 or 2 questions.
Yes, 1 or 2 questions.
I'd like to open, if I could, Jeff Grieco from AACC. So one of the most frustrating things, I feel since 2003 and 4, we've been trying to solve the cold storage issue for the airports. And I'm just stunned that we haven't figured out how to do this effectively yet. There have been a lot of Afghan private sector companies who've come to us and said they've set up their own facilities near the airports, but it's not able to take volume, and they're always at risk of getting it blown up or having a security issue. So how will the export processing zone solve the cold storage issue for us going forward at the main airports? I think that's a huge issue, because a lot of what Keith just said, that higher value-added product like saffron and other things that need to have some refrigeration perhaps for a time being before they're allowed for export, they need to have that problem solved. And if we can solve it through an airport management system, that's maybe easier in the short term than trying to have an outside party keep off-site from the airport a cold storage operation. Maybe, Steve, maybe you could grab that, or Director General Habibi, he's back, okay. Maybe, I don't know if he heard that, but we're talking about cold storage and how you're going to solve all the world's problems. And then if anyone wants to ask a question, just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic over to you.
Okay, we're going to be cold storage. It is an important factor in any airport. First, we are going to be considering them in our cargo terminal. We are going to be having very standard cargo terminals as it is in any other airports around the world. When we talked about these 6 airports, especially one of them is also a cargo terminal. And we, as the government, don't want to either construct it or run it. We want the private sector. The private sector, as you said, who are available during the last 15 years, we want them now. Come and build that one. And this will be also on PPP basis. This will be build, operate, transfer. Until then, for temporary, we will be solving their solution. From last year, we have started addressing that one. We have put cold storages at the 4 international airports until we are having a proper cargo terminals in there. That's why we were able to expand the cargo via air transport last year. There were more than 2,500 tons of fresh fruits exported only from Kabul and Kandahar international airports, and we were using them. So these facilities, especially the cargo terminals, will be having those cargos, cold storages facilities for different modes, whether they are fresh fruits, perishables, medicines, and all those kind of stuffs, and they will be addressed there.
All right, great.
Within the EPZ specifically, some products may not require cold storage. If they do, we would expect the trader to provide that as part of their infrastructure within the EPZ facility.
Okay. One additional question, since I'm not seeing any hands, is the issue of the airlines. So Turkish Airways is now flying direct into different Afghan airports. We now have Air India coming in and is rumored to be adding a whole bunch of new flights from Mumbai, potentially into Afghanistan as well. If we develop these EPCs, which regional or even bigger than regional airports are likely, or airlines are likely going to want to take advantage of that for either cargo reasons or passenger reasons? Can you give us a flavor what markets would be the most likely to jump in on EPZs in Herat and Mazar and Kandahar or other places?
Right now, if we consider, beside Turkish, Emirates, and Fly Dubai, as I said before, there are already 4 airlines who we have just received applications and are under review, such as Qatar Airways. They want to start their flights. Atlas Global from Turkey. We are having Air Arabia. We are having airlines from Iraq. And one of the most important, another hub that we are looking for is Indonesia. Garuda Airlines, and we are looking to them also, and want to go mostly to South Asia and Far East Asia. So there are lots of potential. I mean, considering the central or strategic location of Afghanistan, even right now, we are giving 5th or 6th freedom to most airlines. For example, they fly, most of the airlines are there who flies from India to Kabul, and from Kabul they go to other parts of the world. They don't go back to Delhi, they go to UAE, they go to, or some of the airlines, they are coming, for example, from Emirates has even this agreement with us where they can come and pick the cargo, come to Kabul, and from Kabul they can go to China or Bangkok or some other countries. So there is some huge potential, especially for cargo, and Afghanistan can play a very important role to be a hub for cargo flights.
Thank you very much. Suleiman, back to you.
I would like to thank our panelists. This concludes our panel on exports. At this point, I'd like to have the next panel come on the stage. A good round of applause for this panel, please.